There is renewed speculation going on that EA could potentially sell BioWare. Nothing has been confirmed at this point, but after EA's move into private ownership and with new pressure around debt, cost and portfolio value, the future of BioWare is being questioned again. And for Mass Effect fans, the important question is not simply whether BioWare gets sold, it is what gets sold with it. Because a BioWare sale would not automatically mean Mass Effect is safe. It would not automatically mean disaster either. The future would depend on who owns the studio, who owns the IP, and whether the next steward actually understands what BioWare used to mean. EA's acquisition is now complete. The company has been taken private in a deal valued at around $55 billion, led by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, Silver Lake, and Infinity Partners. And according to EA's own announcement, when the deal was first made, the transaction included roughly $36 billion in equity investment and $20 billion of committed debt finance. That matters because debt changes pressure. It does not mean EA is automatically preparing to sell BioWare. It does not mean Mass Effect is about to change hands. But it does mean EA is entering a different financial environment. And in that environment, every studio and every franchise may be judged more sharply. Especially a studio like BioWare. Because BioWare is in a strange position. The name still means something enormous to a lot of players. For some, BioWare still means Mass Effect, Dragon Age Origins, Baldur's Gate, Knights of the Old Republic, and Jade Empire. It means companions people still remember decades later. It means RPG worlds that felt like places you could live inside. But for others, BioWare now means Andromeda, Anthem, and the Veilguard. It means lost goodwill, damaged trust, and a studio that many players no longer recognize. So when people talk about BioWare being sold, the reaction is complicated. Some players do not feel much sadness for current BioWare. They feel sadness remembering what BioWare used to be. And others still have hope. Not blind hope. Not the kind that pretends the last decade did not happen, but the kind that looks at Mass Effect and Dragon Age and says, these worlds still matter, these IPs still have life. Under the right stewardship, they could still be extraordinary. And that brings us to the point many headlines tend to blur. Selling BioWare would not automatically mean selling Mass Effect. A studio and an intellectual property are not the same thing. EA could theoretically sell BioWare and keep Mass Effect. It could sell BioWare with selected IP. It could license Mass Effect to another studio. It could sell individual franchises separately. Or nothing could happen at all, and BioWare could remain inside a leaner, more tightly controlled EA. Those are very different futures, because if BioWare was sold without Mass Effect or Dragon Age, then what exactly is being sold? A name? A team? A structure? A memory? That does not mean it would be worthless. Studios are people, tools, pipelines, culture, leadership, and institutional knowledge. But BioWare without its major worlds would be a very different thing from BioWare with Mass Effect and Dragon Age attached. And for fans, that distinction matters more than the headline, because Mass Effect's future is not protected just because a logo survives. It depends on who has control of the universe, who decides what kind of game it becomes, who chooses the tone, who gives the team time, who understands that Mass Effect is not just a recognizable brand. It is companions, choices, mystery, politics, alien civilizations, impossible distances, and emotional continuity across years of story. That is why a sale would not automatically mean salvation. A different owner could be better. Under the right steward, Mass Effect and Dragon Age could absolutely still have enormous life left in them. But a sale by itself does not fix broken trust. It does not guarantee better leadership. It does not guarantee creative patience. The wrong buyer could misunderstand the IP and chase nostalgia without understanding why the original worked, or separate BioWare from the work that made the name valuable in the first place. At the same time, staying inside EA is not automatically safer. BioWare's problems did not appear out of nowhere. EA has made decisions that hurt BioWare, but BioWare has also made mistakes of its own. There have been production problems, leadership problems, creative problems, and trust problems. So the question is not as simple as EA bad, sale good. It is not as simple as BioWare leaves EA and everything is suddenly fixed. The real question is stewardship. Who has the patience to make a real RPG? Who has the taste to protect the tone? Who has the discipline to avoid treating beloved worlds as nostalgia ones? And who understands that Mass Effect is valuable not only because people recognize the name, but because people still remember what it felt like to believe in that universe. That is the part I care about, not corporate reshuffling for its own sake, not a studio name being moved from one spreadsheet to another. Mass Effect needs an owner and a development culture that understand why people still talk about the Normandy, the Citadel, the Reapers, the Companions, the choices, the loss, and the hope. Dragon Age needs the same kind of care. Jade Empire, if anyone ever remembers that it exists, deserves the same kind of care too. So, if EA ever sells BioWare, the question will not be whether Mass Effect is saved or doomed overnight. It will be what exactly changes hands. The studio? The staff? The technology? Dragon Age? Mass Effect? All of it? Or none of it? A BioWare sale would not automatically mean salvation. It would not automatically mean disaster either, but it would make one thing impossible to ignore. Mass Effect's future depends less on who owns the name and more on whether anyone left understands what the name is supposed to mean.